Lovely work. So we are here this afternoon with the champ, the great Olly Jones. How are we doing today?
Bosh, my man. Thanks for having me.
Love that. Thank you for coming today. So again, we've literally just come off of a great podcast, like second time on your show. Thanks for having me. I just did 2 hours, incredible chat. Not
You
sure
broke
when
a record on the show. We'll keep it quiet, but you broke
That's
a record
it.
on the show.
We did. So again, make sure you tune in and watch the Squeeze the Neck podcast. But for those who don't already know who you are, tell us about yourself. Like, who is Olly Jones?
So, as you said, mate, I'm Squeeze the Neck podcast now, which I do. I sit down with people like yourself and fighters and everything, and I don't look at an interview. I just sit down and have a chat and genuinely just see where it goes. Some people on the podcast will talk linear about their fight career or what they're doing with themselves now, currently, very 1, 2, 3, 4. Other people go off and talk about conspiracy theories and the pyramids and aliens and whatever else, right? So it's just a chat with other fighters and whatever. In terms of myself, lifetime martial artist. I started off as an amateur boxer. Went from there, I started doing some grappling arts. I've done some bits and pieces of a lot of things. You know, I teach jiu-jitsu now. You know, as we said on the show, I recently started doing some judo, Kyokushin style karate. I teach sort of, I sort of reject the term self-defense, if you like, because of it can sound a little bit like, ooh, you know, a bit death touch. Ooh. But, you know, I teach some people like basically what I do, what I've learned from the arts I've been involved in.
Yeah, love that. And so with this, obviously our channel is the Success Series, but more importantly, what we do is we focus on like getting stronger. So today's episode is going to be getting stronger with martial arts. Reason I'm saying martial arts over MMA is because even though you are a mixed martial artist, I love the fact that you've practiced each in terms of competed in the different martial arts, as in like from boxing, you've mentioned training judo now, also mentioned some of your like calisthenics and your interest there. So like when it comes to like, how did you get started on the combat journey?
So when I say my first sport was boxing, I should go back a bit further, to be honest with you. I did some Muay Thai when I was sort of 10. For about a year, something like that. I did like a couple of days. I don't remember them being called interclubs at the time, but from what I know now, they are interclubs, right?
Yeah.
So you'd turn up, you're not old enough or whatever it is, it's not scored, but you're having a fight and in your own club with, you know, kids that are around your weight and all that kind of stuff. Not as serious as like when you got a bit older and I was doing boxing and you weighing in and it's a proper fight and it's scored, etc. But it was like from my view, it's like the equivalent of a skills bout in amateur boxing for anyone who knows what that is, right? So I started doing that. And I was playing football and whatever, and I was blah, blah. I was always interested in boxing and whatever. Then I got to about 17, and I went down to my local boxing club, which was Earlsfield Amateur Boxing Club, which just happened to be one of the best clubs in the country, lucky for me. And I was in there with like the likes of, they was already in there. When I walked in the room, I was going in the room with like the likes of Bradley Skeet, Kurt Garvey and his brother Robert Garvey, Lewis Adolphi. Later on came Joe Joyce. So I was in like a, as I say, just lucky environment of where I lived. It was just up the road, not knowing anything. I just Googled or whatever I did at the time, the local boxing club, and that was there. And I met Sid Khan and everyone that's down there, the coaches Andy and Bob and all the guys that have been there over the years. And from that, then I started personal training as a job. As I got a little bit older, I was like, whatever. And from that, I started getting into a bit of CrossFit style stuff, and then some movement stuff. So, like, I don't know if you know Ido Portal is.
Yeah.
So I studied under Ido. I went all over the world training with Ido. Oh, wow. He's the guy who learnt me handstands. And, like the muscle ups, the ring routines. If anyone follows my Instagram, the sort of ring routine stuff and whatever I did. He introduced me to that very heavily. And then I started getting into sort of, basically, I'll tell you what happened really. I might have mentioned this on a podcast before. Where I was boxing, I was working in Canary Wharf, and I won't mention names because of what I'm about to say next. I don't mean this is a dig on the people, but I started doing a little bit of sparring with some MMA fighters that were around the gym. Now, they weren't very good MMA fighters, right? So I was doing my striking sparring with them, and I was on top of them or whatever. And then they was like, oh, do you fancy doing a bit of grappling, whatever? And I started doing a bit of that with them. And they weren't very good, which is why I'm mentioning it. I'm not mentioning their name, but I'm not trying to dig them. But because they weren't very good, I'm kind of in the grapple as well, not knowing it, right? But so that sort of perked my interest, and it went on a little bit. And I got a relative, Nicky Robinson, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I started training more with them. Before that, actually, I did a little bit in third space with a fella called Alex Slater and the boys up there. And one of the cover teachers one day was a fella called Matt Robinson, who I'd never met before, but is also a relative of mine, Nicky's brother.
Okay.
Right? So I knew Nicky when we was younger because we're closer in age. Matt would be probably 8 to 10 years older than me. We get chatting and we kind of figured out who we were, blah, blah, blah. So I started training with Nicky more and I went down there, new school BJJ. And we started doing that. And then over years, like I picked things up. I've been to Thailand, done some Thai boxing, and I'm just one of them that's very interested in martial arts, you know? Like I've done some MMA sparring with people. And basically going back to when I started doing some sparring with these MMA fighters, who shall remain nameless, to be obvious. When I say they were MMA fighters, they were going to MMA classes, right? I'm not saying, right? Let's not get crazy. Like, we won't give them nicknames. But they were, you know, whatever.
You weren't like submitting Leon Edwards or anything like that.
They weren't like the Khabib of London or something, right? Exactly. Do you know what I'm saying? They went to MMA. I don't even know if they've... I know one of them fought once, but or maybe more, but you know what I'm saying? I don't know what they did. But that sort of got my interest. And it was basically like anything I was vulnerable to, I kind of wanted to plug the gap a little bit, you know, from being... let's say 18, being a boxer, thinking you're invincible, and that's all you need, and nothing. I don't need that kicking nonsense. You know what I mean? No one's going to choke me, like all that kind of stuff. To sort of then, before you know it, you're trying bits and pieces. So that's kind of my sort of martial arts journey so far, if you like. And then, as I mentioned, I was a personal trainer, and that kind of evolved into doing little bits of boxing. And as I got better at grappling, teaching grappling. And before you knew it, I've kind of made the transition to full-time teaching martial arts and combat versus just personal training.
Nice. So where do you currently teach for those if they wanted to like work and train with you?
So I teach jiu-jitsu classes, no-gi style in New School. So I do 2 classes a week in New School Brixton. I do 2 classes a week in New School Cheam, and then around that I do privates. So you know, I travel to people's homes, or if they've got their own private gym, something like that. Is what I do. Yeah.
Nice. And then like with martial arts, because again, similar to you, whenever I travel, I like to almost really hone in and learn of like the martial arts or the. It's almost like you've got like a community you can tap into. So you go away. Like last year when I went, a few years ago, I went to Ghana, was able to. It was a lot easier to kind of connect with the people of the country. Because you're like, oh, you into boxing? I'm into boxing. Before you know it, you've got a brother. Now he's going to take you down to boxing gyms in a place which like most people probably wouldn't gain access to because they would know about it or would not be invited to. But because you've already got that brotherhood in combat, it kind of brings that that space. Where are some of the places that maybe you visited that you kind of was like, wow, like as in like I feel at home and like, or what an experience this was.
One of the places I went to that was really, really cool was Bulgaria, Sofia, Bulgaria. So I started doing some freestyle wrestling when I was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu with a fella called Lubo Kumbrov. Shout out Lubo if this finds you. I'll be up to train soon, man. But he was one of those guys. He was a national champion, 4-time national champion in Bulgaria at freestyle wrestling, and one of the best grapplers you ever. He's smaller than me, but he's one of them people that's fluid. As soon as you touch his body, you're like, whoa, something's off. You know what I mean? Something, and he's like in certain positions, he's strong as an ox. Just a great, you know, brilliant. So he kind of took me under his wing a little bit. We ended up going on a trip to Bulgaria. Not just me and him, but like he made a little trip and I was invited on it. And we went out there and we got the chance to train with some of the Bulgarians out there. And the week after we was there was like a big international competition with like some top guys. Which we got to see them train a little bit and stuff like that. And that was an experience because you go out there and it's one of them places like people don't really speak English until you've trained a little bit, you know, and they speak fluent. But it was like one of them places very old school, like in the precinct of a part of the university we trained in. There was like tanks and like trucks and things, and you know, you're like, what are they for? It was like, World War II? Yeah. Well, yeah, they just left them. You know, it was like one of them places, right? It was like cool. But hard training out there, and it was one of them places. Not necessarily feel at home, because you definitely felt like an outsider type thing, if you like. But it was like, we wouldn't have got access to that without Lubo, right? Yeah. Lubo's like very well respected, more than well respected at that. He's a top guy. So with him, we walk in. Like if we weren't with him, they'd have been looking at you like, what are you doing? They wouldn't have even pretended they spoke English. So that was a mad experience, you know. But then you go to other experiences with a bit more sort of like you can just turn up. Like I went to Thailand on my own once to train at Tiger Muay Thai.
Oh yeah, I love Tiger. Yeah.
At the time.
So that's down Fitness Street, right? You go down there, exactly. Loads of gyms down there.
Yeah, loads of gyms down there. I trained at Phuket Top Team for a day when that was there. It's gone now, but it's just up the road. But in there, and that's obviously like there's a million people, not a million, but there's thousands of people. It feels like there's probably a few hundred on the mat. You know, it's a crazy place. So that's a very different experience because you're just sort of like just turning up to classes and sort of like. No, but not nobody knows anyone because there's people you speak to there, obviously, and some of the people you talk to have been there for like 3 months and whatnot, right? So they're like almost, one of the guys I spoke to, I think his name was Greg, Australian guy. And he'd basically, his story was he had long hair, he was whatever. He'd split up with his missus and was just like annoyed at the world. So he just went to Tiger Muay Thai to learn Thai boxing and was going to stay there till the money ran out. That was his plan, right? So you're meeting all these interesting characters and whatnot. But America's been good. I've had some good trips in America. Colorado especially been good. Eastern, BJJ is a good place. They're a big MMA gym. And I happened to be out there at the same time as a one championship for one time. I've been there a few times, but one of the times, one championship was out there. And it happened to be, you know, Jonathan Haggerty?
Yeah.
Jonathan
Of course,
Haggerty,
he's local.
yeah, he's local,
Yeah.
right? So Jonathan Haggerty was fighting, and he was fighting against the Thai guy, and so was Liam Harrison. They were both fighting Thais.
Oh, yeah,
They
no,
didn't,
Liam
they
as
didn't
well.
go well in the fights, to be honest with you. But I just happened to be out there, and I don't know if you know who Vinny Shawman is. Do you know Vinny Shawman?
No, yeah.
The mind coach.
Yeah.
So
no,
he worked with Liam
because he was Lavenson. Yeah, that's how I know.
Right,
Yeah.
so he was. I did a podcast with him. Shout out to Vinny if Divs ever finds you, mate. He was a brilliant guy. Had me at his house. Just a brilliant personality. And we was chatting on a podcast, and like Liam came up and whatever, because I'd seen him on Rogan's episodes and some of the stories that we was talking. And he said, "Oh, you know, he's fighting soon, blah blah." And you know, he told you the dates, and you go, "I'm out there. I'm there then as well for training." So anyway, I got a ticket. I went to the fights. One championship was really good, and I sort of half blagged my way into the open workouts because the open workouts were at this season. But you had to be a member, proper member. It was free to members, but no outsiders. You couldn't pay your way. And I rang up and I said, "Look, I'm here, blah blah. Can I pay to do it?" "Oh, sorry, sir, I can't do this." And anyway, "Oh, fine, put the phone there." And I'm thinking, you know when it's stewing on your brain, like, I've got to get in there. So I ring them back up. I was like, "Look, blah, blah." And he was like, "Look, we just can't do it." "Oh, okay, cool." I thought, okay, book an Uber. I've gone down there, I showed up and I spoke to her. She was like, "Did we speak?" I was like, "Look, I'm here, I'm coming in. What's the deal?" like, how can we sort this out? Like, what's going on? And she was like, "All right." She was really nice. She went, "All right, give me a second." She went and spoke to the manager. She was like, "All right, look, if you pay for a month of membership, that'll count as a member. Come in. €100, well, not euros, sorry, dollars. Bang, I'm in." So, so that was a good experience.
I rate that, yeah.
But you know, when you're just like, "I'm going to get in. How am I going to get in there? I'm here now." So it was good. But yeah, man, to answer your question, I like traveling to places and training. You know, like I've had some great times in Germany training as well. Some really good people in Berlin, and they put me onto a great guy, Benny, in Munich. Yeah, brilliant times.
Do you know, I really want to go back to that story you mentioned of getting into the open gym, because it's like, what I talk about in my book, the 12 boxing principles, is there's like 12 principles. Today's the 17th that we're filming this. It's going to be coming out on not Sunday, probably either next Sunday or the Sunday after, so next week or two. But it's going to be the 17th. So principles 1 and 7 are faith and the will to win. So just to show you what they are here. So you see the principles, faith and the will to win. There, what you just shared from that story there was more someone who's like, "Look, I believe I'm going to be at this open workout. I can see myself here. Doesn't matter what happens." Like, but also having that will to win, being like, "Look, I'm not taking it out. First call, no, sorry, you can't. Okay, no, but I want it more. Second call, no, sorry, sir, you still can't. Okay, cool." You're like, "Do you know what? Calling is obviously not enough. I need to bring myself in." So that is really that will to win. And so those are principles I believe I've learned through combat sports, through boxing, but apply to, as you said, not just to in the ring, but to life as a whole. What would you say is like from these principles which I just shared here, which are perhaps other principles you feel that you've like learned through, martial arts?
So it's
And,
interesting you say that. I can definitely relate to all of them. You know, so if I'll read them. So people know. Faith, vision, teamwork, focus, hard work and dedication, discipline, the will to win, resilience, confidence, respect, humility, and legacy. Now, I think I can relate to all of them. But to touch on what you said earlier, where you said boxing taught you this, blah, blah, blah. Here's where I've come to my thinking over the last, I don't know, little period of time. I said to you on the podcast, I think I've been reading a lot of books of sort of champions and philosophy and blah, blah, blah recently. And what I think the realization is I don't think boxing taught you that, and I can't speak for you, but I think you had it, and I think because you had it, you resonate towards something like boxing. You know what I'm saying? And like whether that's true or not for you, that's for you to answer. But for me, that's how I feel. I feel like these qualities, you're kind of, in a way, you're born with to a degree.
Yes, yeah.
And
correct.
they nurture through things. And because you've got that certain personality, you sort of gravitate towards certain things, and that ends up bringing you to boxing jiu-jitsu, whatever kind of combat. I think it's a certain type of personality, because we all know people that have done combat. I don't like you. You don't like me. Right? We're never going to be mates. But there's a certain something that we can... There's in there that's the same, other than the fact I don't like you. You know what I mean? But do you see what I'm saying? I think it's a certain personality, and there's almost a little bit of I hesitate to say it, but craziness that draws you to it, because there's a reality. Why you want to get punched in the face? Yeah? But we did. We both boxed. Like, you chose this for a reason. Now, that reason, I've said this again on podcasts before, if you grew up very happy all the time and everything's all good, would you do it? Maybe, because some people might, but there's a reality. There's a few demons in there that make you want to do this, yeah? Now, I guess that contradicts a little bit what I said in terms of you're born with it and other things nurture it. But I think what you're born with plus your life experiences develop a certain something in you, right? And when you sort of start doing certain things, it develops more and more and more. Now, here's another thing. I'm going to get a bit deep on you at the risk of sounding a bit out there.
Hey, I like it.
You know, people talk about free will. Yeah, with me. So, free will versus determination theory. Are you familiar with determination theory?
No.
So, determination theory, as I understand it, is everything that happens forever is already predetermined. Not necessarily by choice, but by example being, if I drop a light bulb from a certain height with a certain force, certain pressure in the room, etc., and it shatters into 1 billion different pieces all over the room, then I repeat that in exactly the same way, and you smash it again, they land in exactly the same places, because that's how it does under that amount of force and that amount of work. So, from my understanding, determination theory is that's essentially the universe. When everything is, it's already set in motion. Now, my feeling on it is, people say, have you got free will, or do you believe in determination theory? My feeling is they both go together, because your free will is real. You decide now. If I lift your left hand, you decided to lift that left hand, right? So that's your own free will. Versus determination theory, your free will, to me, again, this is my view on it, other people might, is you chose that because of all your life experiences, and who you are and everything else, right? Other than I told you to do it, right? But your life and your free will is based on everyone that came before you too, and it all goes back to eventually a starting point. Whatever you believe in whatever. So I'm, again, at the risk of sounding a bit out there, I kind of see things like that a little bit in terms of like everything we do is already. It's going to happen. Do you see what I mean? And I don't mean that to sound hippified or whatever. It's all going to happen, man. You know, I don't mean that. But because we make the choices too. But I think to an element, you are who you are.
100%. I think that actually brings us really well onto the keys of self-mastery. Because like, when it comes to, let's say, combat sports, was this or martial arts, each one, you kind of mentioned like different spaces in terms of like starting, you know, in some Muay Thai, bringing it over to boxing. With each one, like, what were your goals? Like, how did you kind of, what did you set out? Because, see, this is now a lifelong journey. Obviously, we actually met at a masterclass when we were doing one with Nigel Ben. And then again, I remember the first time it was like, you're like, oh yeah, take it easy on the pads, yeah, because I got Nigel next. And you're like, bro, remember, I said, take it easy, right? It's like, you're like, is this easy? So, I still remember that one. But it's in like, so, and like, you know, since then, you know, you've been at multiple masterclasses. You're doing one coming up with Frank the Noble Art, Frank Gilweather. Gilfeather. How do I say his name? Gilfeather. So, yes. What would you say, like, when it comes to like your own personal fitness journey and getting yourself prepared, like, how do you kind of like set your goals to ensure that you're like the best you can be?
So it's good. I mean, it changes over time, obviously, right? So if we go back, like when you said when I started doing Muay Thai, it's just like you want to have a fight, right? You want to feel like you're a bit of a tough kid or whatever. Basically, it's as simple as that. When I started boxing, when I was I made my own choice to go to the boxing gym. It was like, right, first of all, I want to fight, and you know, you start thinking, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, I want to be a boxer, basically, right? So I wanted to be a boxer, but then, as I said, when I found other things, you start like, I just wanted to plug the gaps because as much as I felt like I was improving in boxing and I was whatever, blah, 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 not that I was a world champion boxer by any means, but you know what I'm saying? Like, as you're progressing and you're starting to win bouts and you're starting to feel good and whatever, like, then someone kicks your leg and then someone takes you down and then someone's on your back. And I was always in the mode of like plugging the gap type thing, you know? So I started chasing that. But in terms of like, as things went on, it got even more because then it was like, I want to prepare myself physically, as I mentioned, CrossFit, because I thought, right, that seems better than just running. That seems like I can get. And then from CrossFit, I found Ido Portal's method. Then I started doing it. But basically, it was always like if I saw something that I wanted to sort of progress myself. Now, nowadays, because the flaw in that I've done before is try and do too much. Okay, I want a one-arm handstand, I want a backflip, I want to be black belt in this, I want to, whoa, you know, we're doing, everything's like you're doing a little bit of everything. And what I was essentially doing was training full-time for all of them things. So really all you end up doing is going through your life exhausted. Do you know what I mean? And not really getting the results that you should be. And you're on the mats with people that are training 2 or 3 times a week. You're training every single day and busting yourself, and you think they're improving a bit more than you. So that's assessment. But to answer your question in terms of what I do now, I do things that complement themselves. So in terms of, I want to get stronger from my martial arts, right? Okay, cool. One arm chin up supports that. It's also covering that goal. Handstand push up as an example. You know, all the things I spoke about on the podcast. Like being able to stand on one hand for balance helps. So they're complementary. Do you see what I mean? I do sprint training because I want to be able to, I want to be fast, right? For what I do. Flexibility training because I want to be able to go in range. And also like the Van Damme thing between the chairs is like a bells and whistles thing, like a nice photo and things like that. But not just training for it mindlessly like I would have done before, where it's like I'm just forcing it for the sake of it, looks good, goal achieved. Now it's like it's a carryover in terms of it helps me with what I do. So I try and do things like this. And basically, I don't look at it as training sessions anymore. I essentially train throughout the day. Now, don't get me wrong, I'll go to a jiu-jitsu class or go spar boxing, for example, or whatever I do, but it's all sort of part of the same session mentally. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but I think you see where I'm coming from.
So
everything complements itself, you know?
Absolutely. So it's been having like clear reasons for why you're doing it to complement something, like something within your combat sport. So let's say if it's a physical goal or training process, it's because it's going to help your mixed martial arts and your martial arts.
And sometimes it's missing sessions too, because before I was the guy that would force yourself. Sometimes I'd be doing 4 classes a day and hard classes. Now, these are separate. One might be jiu-jitsu, one might be boxing, one might be Thai. So you go into all these places, they don't know about the other one, they don't care either, nor should they. So you're showing up and you're just getting beat down. By the 3rd session, you're useless, right? But if I was forcing myself to go, whereas now, sometimes it will be, okay, cool, I'd plan to do sparring, or not sparring, because that's, you can't really replicate that, but I plan to go and do jiu-jitsu. But I'm real tired and my body needs a rest. I'm not being lazy. This is a battle I've been through as well. Like, are you being lazy? Which is not the case for people that train a lot. But it's more, do I need the rest? So then I might go and drill by myself. I might go and work on a specific something by myself. Instead of going and doing a hard boxing session, I might go and work on the bag. But I don't look at it like training as much as I look at it like a practice, you know. And I realise that sounds a bit like you try to be clever and whatever. But I'll go and work on something specific instead of just hitting the bag mindlessly and like levering it, which has got a place too, which I will do. But sometimes I'll just go and, for example, work on a jab, you know, move on certain things, simple things like that. But I look at things a lot more now like a practice versus like beating my body down. And like I said to you before, again on the podcast, is like I've got quite heavily into reading. Now, if you'd have said to me a year ago about reading this book, I'd have gone, cool, man, thank you. See you later. You know what I mean? But now I'd almost look at that again as part of it, really. Do you know, part of sort of self-development, if you like, because like to sit there, and I mentioned to you before the Roger Gracie book that I read was fantastic, and like little things, and to sit there and read, that is essentially a training session of ways, but my body's not getting beaten down, and that's kind of how I'm trying to view it now. Whether it's even things like eating, I try and do the whole thing together. Do you know what I mean? Like,
100%.
I'm not going to go and get a burger. It ain't going to help me. Not because I'm trying to be like, I wouldn't put that in my body, but it's not going to help me, right? So it's like I don't do it anymore, you know. And little things that I'll do, like for example, a simple one. I ran out of coffee the other day, right? I'm a big coffee man. Black coffee in the mornings. I fast all the day. Blah blah blah. But I've run out of coffee. So it's took a couple of days to go. So 2 of them days I ain't had coffee. Now all of a sudden I'm 6 days deep with no coffee. I'm like, let's ride that for a while. Do you know what I mean? Just as a mental kind of like, I'll wake up in the morning and shove coffee down. Let's see how it feels after, I ain't got a set time on it, like I'm going to stop for a month or anything. But, little things like that, just to keep the mind sharp. I like cold therapies, sitting in the ice bath in the morning, breathing it, all these kind of things that I do. But the reason I say it is not because like, oh, look at me, all the things I do. But before I would do all these things and force it all into a day. So by the end of the day, all you do is end mentally exhausted. Whereas now it's kind of like, I try and do it geared towards improvement. If it doesn't serve you, I get it out. Like for example, if we leave here now and I was supposed to go and deadlift heavy, it might not be the right time. So maybe it might be better served to go and, I don't know, stretch or whatever.
Do a nice long walk and
do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like do something else instead, or just spend time with people. Like sitting here now with you is like, before I would have probably looked at that as like, right, I've got to get this podcast done so I can. Whereas now it's like this is part of it in a way. Do you know what I mean? Talking to people, good for the soul or whatever. People
100%,
say, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
it all to me that's kind of where I am with it.
Yeah, no, I like that. So for the watchers and listeners, we're all about inspiring, motivating, empowering others to get stronger physically, mentally on their journey. We all face different battles. So maybe someone who's, let's say, when I say novice, is a lot of people, every man at over 25 or 30 has kind of got some sort of self-defense background and can do this and that, but obviously question marks when it actually comes to it. But let's say we're taking basically generally novice, they're talking about their experience of what they used to do 20 years ago, nothing that they've done recently. So they're new to martial arts or coming back into martial arts after a long hiatus. What like maybe 3 or 5 tips would you give to somebody who does want to get stronger and get back into their martial arts journey? Again, there's no right or wrong answer here, just like what you would kind of, how you would direct and guide them.
Yeah, so I've actually, we won't mention names because they're very well known in the boxing space, but I told you before someone I'm training recently, we're sort of going through this thing, right? And they're coming off a bit of a layoff and whatever. But for me, it's very much, you got to get the idea of being lazy out. So we're not talking about lazy people, like you give them the option to lay down and they'll just take the day off. I don't mean that. I'm talking about switching on. First of all, you add it small. So don't go and train 7 days a week, 3 times a day, all that kind of stuff. Add small bits. Basically, keep it as simple as train, recover. When you're recovered, train again. Now that comes down to a bit of mental discipline because, as I said, that comes into whether you're going to be lazy about it or you're going to train not when you're supposed to, and I'm going out tomorrow night, so I'll train now instead, and you know, things like that. All that stuff is, to me, that's a separate issue. Keep it simple. Go train, do something very basic and simple. Should make you feel better than when you got in there. Shouldn't be beating yourself down. That's no good to anybody. Now, the asterisk by that is if you're a different person and you're going to train for a fight and you've got 6 weeks to go, you might want to go and beat your body down and get the result. But if you're just looking to train and get back in and get the body moving properly, to me, go train, eat well. When you're recovered, go again. Keep it as simple as that. And then over time, that turns into, for some people, 2 or 3 times a day because that's how it goes. But you're not beating yourself down. And listen, you don't learn nothing if you're tired. I learned that like the hard way. You know what I mean? How many times I sat in jiu-jitsu class like that and just like, I just want to go home and sleep because I trained too much. You know what I mean? So like, to me, train, recover, train again. And don't try and do too many things at once. So it doesn't have to be perfect sleep, perfect training, perfect food, perfect. Just do one thing. Do you know what I mean? Go and train, recover, go again. Once your training's on point, you've got a bit of a rhythm of that, you start adding in your diet and starting adding into other healthy things. But it's a long-term thing, isn't it? You're alive for as long as you're going to be here. So it hasn't got to be in 6 weeks. It's
100%.
But in 6 weeks you'll be better than, you know what I mean? You're closer than what you are now.
That's it, and I love that as well, is like how you've broken it down, kept it simple, eat, train, recover, and then it's just being able to sort of notice again, and just trying to avoid being lazy.
Well, it's got to be something that you can add in that's going to last. It's not something that's stressful like a training camp. Like, for example, if you're a fighter and you go into a full training camp, you can't do that all year forever. It's too much. But if I said to you, go and train and do, I don't know, like, for example, with you with your push-ups, go and do your push-up workout today. That's it. Relax. And then when it's good again, do more push-ups. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's something as basic and as simple as that. Because a push-up's a great example because there's always a floor around, right? You can always do a push. But it's like, to me, go and do it, recover, go and do it again. And then once you start adding things when you're ready to add things in, you know what I mean? The mistake I made, as I said to you already, is like doing too much. Like, okay, cool, I'm doing this, and this today. I've got 5 training sessions. How long is that going to last? I can do it today, might do it tomorrow, the next day. But in 6 weeks, if you come back, I ain't still doing that. You can't.
Definitely. So if someone's new to combat sports, they're getting themselves into this, one striking discipline, or one grappling discipline, or like more holds, which one would you kind of guide them for from a self-defense perspective? So somebody wants to know how to take care of themselves. And I always tell someone, like, combat sports is more like insurance. What I mean by that, it's like, it kind of gives you that extra confidence and safety that you know how to take care of yourself. But same way when you got insurance, doesn't mean you're going to drive 100 miles per hour down the opposite side of the road. Like, it's not going to save your life like that. But what martial arts would you give somebody to gain more confidence? They want to know they can take care of themselves, like from a striking perspective, from a like grappling and carry themselves? What would you recommend or guide them
So,
towards?
in terms of the actual art, to be honest, if you're just starting, I wouldn't really worry. I'd find the one that you enjoy because that's the one you're going to stick with, right? And not to sort of sit on the fence because I'll tell you what ones I think are the most effective if we go down that route. But if you're starting, I would definitely
Yeah.
say play around with them and do the one you enjoy. If you go, for example, and I wouldn't even break it necessarily into striking and grappling because if you go to a jiu-jitsu class and you hate it, but then you go to a boxing class and you love it, you don't need me to tell you which one to do, right? Go to the one you enjoy doing. And then over time, if you want to add that one, try that, try a bit of Muay Thai, etc. Do you see what I mean? I would find something you enjoy because you're going to stick with it. And I'm guilty of doing the opposite too. You know what I mean? You go to things and force it. And it's probably not that I didn't enjoy it because I've always enjoyed any sort of martial art I've done. But when it's again, the fourth session of the day and you're burnt out, you don't like it now. So it's like, you know, but in terms of what I think is the best, if you was going to start as a base and you was going to branch out and make yourself like, say, sort of a complete fighter, the two I would start with is kind of 3-ish, but the two I would start with would definitely be boxing on the feet. I do think boxing's a better base than kickboxing. Not because kickboxing wouldn't beat a boxer, but boxing is better in terms of balance and movement for other forms of fighting to be added on top of it. I think it's easier, and people can disagree, I think it's easier, more efficient, is probably a better word, not easier, more efficient to learn boxing and movement and stay on your feet and then learn to kick on top of that and adjust slightly, which you'll have to, and start throwing knees and your elbows and everything that you'll have to adjust for, but get the base first. Don't start with more of an upright stance, like for example Muay Thai, and then have to add the rest because you're more vulnerable to other things. In terms of grappling, I would say to start, it's tricky. I would start with one on the feet, not jiu-jitsu, even though I love jiu-jitsu, I teach jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu. If you was talking about on its own, what could be the most effective, there's an argument, I'm not adamant on that, but there's an argument that jiu-jitsu, definitely not, sometimes can be over sporty in terms of points and systems like that, but old school jiu-jitsu for the finish, probably on its own would be the one you'd go for, but if you're going to add other things in, wrestling, for sure. Freestyle wrestling, judo's good on your feet. The ones that are on your feet, okay? Because that's where it starts. It's reality, you know. And there's certain people that do jiu-jitsu, and it's not knocking anybody, but as soon as the fight starts touching, they sit to their bum. Listen, of course, if they grab your leg and you don't know jiu-jitsu, they will tap you quicker than you know what's going on. But you might toe poke them in the nose and finish the day early. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't sit down in front. You're not going to sit down in front of someone in a real fight, which is the issue with it. Now, if you're on the ground, you better know your jiu-jitsu. You get where I'm coming from. But in terms of that, yeah, I would probably say if you're looking for two, boxing and wrestling. But the asterisk by that is I'm talking about as a starting point. As a starting point, you have to have submissions. You have to. But you asked me starting, right? Starting, wrestling to me, freestyle wrestling is king of sports. They are the best athletes, hands down, I've ever seen in my life. When I mentioned to you about Bulgaria and stuff like that, I'd seen some before. Lubo, the coach, just the most athletic thing. Like when we finished, I'll give you an example. When we was in Bulgaria, when we finished our adult class, there was a 6 to 9 year old boys class after, and their warm up was backflips down the mat. Part of the warm up. These are freaky people, you know, the athletes. They played that. I don't know if you've ever seen that basketball game where they don't bounce the ball, they throw it.
Oh yeah,
just having a tear up. We did that out there, and I remember like someone threw me the ball, and I'm thinking, you know, like they throw me a basketball, and they don't really speak English, and they throw me the ball, and I look around, and they go no, and then you know you get out the corner, right? Some geezer sprinting at you, full power. I get rid of the ball. Then. You know what I mean? And everyone, it was like a comedy sketch where they get near the hoop. No one could shoot to save their life. Everyone kept missing. They're just having tear-ups and fighting with the ball. It was brilliant. But yeah, I think I answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so like, what we'll do is like, to kind of come towards the end of this is, I remember you, obviously, Squeeze the Neck podcast has been growing. I'm a fan, a subscriber. So again, make sure you check him out on YouTube. What is the vision? Like, how did this one get started? And like, what's the vision? Where would you like to take this?
So in terms of where it started, it was more just sort of I was messing about on the mat and I kept talking about it with someone for a while. Like I trained with, we're going to do it, but he kept missing and whatever. And you know, in the end, where it's like I just do it by myself. And started talking to people, and I knew loads of people from boxing and grappling, and I was reaching out to people that sort of I didn't know, but they're sort of second hand, and especially in jiu-jitsu because there's some bigger names that are quite accessible. Like for example, if me and you now message Anthony Joshua out of the blue in his DMs. He ain't going to see it for one. If he does, he ain't going to reply. You know what I'm saying? But jiu-jitsu is a little bit more of a smaller world, so you've kind of you can connect to someone that knows him, and you're talking a bit, you know, in terms of the... and boxers that I'd known and whatever. I just started reaching out, and I got more sort of responses than I thought I would. You know what I mean? And it was quite fun, and it just got rolling. And like in terms of my vision for it, yeah, I want it to be. I've said it before. I want it to be the sort of the fight podcast of the UK, if you like. You know what I mean? I want it to be. I've always steered away. I've had a few offers of sort of media training and things like that, which I've pushed away because you know how I do it. I just turn it on, and go, boom, put away. Hey! And we talk about things, and we just have a conversation. Basically, that whether that was on or not, me and you probably talk the same anyway. You know what I mean? That's how I want it to be, and that's how I want it to stay. And my vision for it is more sort of going all over the world with it. I've been lucky. I've been blessed to go to sort of. I've been with it. I've been in places in Europe, multiple countries in Europe, America, Dubai. You know, I've got other things coming up in America and stuff, and it's cool. Like it. You know, I want to do that, and I want it to turn into a real thing instead of because at the moment, obviously, I'm reaching out and things are fun, but you know, I want it to take care of itself, if you like. You know, what I mean, I want it to grow, and you know, I want it to be the real deal. You know.
Absolutely, no, I love that. And like as you know, what we do as we come towards the end.
Watch out now.
Grip strength is one of those things which, again, is key, pivotal. Whether you're striking, grappling, it is necessary. So what we'll do, just to warm things up, I'll kind of set the mark to show how it works. So all you do, so you grab it, you hold, squeeze, gives you a number. So today it's a bit, we've got 58.7 for those who don't see. But again, there's no right or wrong. But men's average is 43.
What did you do with
so I just kind of just put my fingers through slightly. Sometimes people try and put their fingers through too much, but I see it's like, if you've already done that, most of your squeezing's already gone. Versus here, yeah.
And you did this, you did like the...
There it's more of like, well, I just saw the people who get the top scores, they started theirs. I was like, let me start doing that there. So there, and I just drive it all the way through.
No pressure then, right?
There we go. So you're ready, 3, 2, 1, squeeze, and relax.
Lovely.
What do you get? 47.74. That is solid because that is above the men's average. You want to give another go? So see what we got. There we go. That's it. There we have it. 3, 2, 1. Freeze. 10. 47.4. There we go. Same score. So again, nice and consistent there. But what is the secret to your strength? What did you say?
I do a lot of natural stuff. As I said to you, like I train sort of the calisthenics. I do a lot of handstand work. Grappling, I think, makes you strong anyway. It's one of the comments I always get when I grapple with people is how strong I am for my size. So I put it down to grappling a lot and calisthenics.
Grappling, calisthenics, love that. Then, as you know, in life, many people have faced battles, you know, me, you, everyone, not just in the ring, but just in the ring of life. So what message would you have maybe to inspire, motivate, empower someone who's maybe going through their growth, through facing their challenges? What like words of encouragement or inspiration would you give them?
There's a famous quote that I heard once that I thought that helped me in certain spots was, if you're going through hell, keep going. Simple as that.
That's it. Keep going. Love that. Well, brother,
thank you,
much appreciated. Thank you for having me today. Well, thank you for coming on today. And I look forward to seeing the podcast. I look forward to just seeing your growth. Again, you're one of the very genuine people in the industry who I've met. I've met a lot of people. And I'd say you're someone who shoots from the hip. And what I mean from that is in like it or lump it, you're going to speak your truth. And I think there's not as many people who are as refreshing and as grounded as you are. Then despite, you know, you traveling around, building your network, you've always got time for me and I always appreciate that.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you
Blessings,
very much.
bro. Take care, bro.
Top man. Thank you.
Top one.
Cheers.
Nice one.
That was good.
Cheers.